September the 30th, 1980. His Royal Highness the Duke of Gloucester inaugurates the first flow of oil from Murchison. Behind this visit lies a remarkable story of a project which brought in a North Sea oil field on schedule and within budget, something not before achieved in that intransigent sea. The Murchison Field, Block 21119, just south of the 62nd parallel, 120 miles northeast of Shetland, on the median line between Scotland and Norway. Estimated reserves, 350 to 400 million barrels of oil. The aim? To build the biggest steel structure ever launched from a barge, 544 feet high and weighing 25,000 metric tons, to tow it to Murchison, tip it into the sea, secure it to the seabed, and build upon it the technology which will enable it to produce oil at the rate of 150,000 barrels a day. That, quite simply, was the task. Involved in the project was an Anglo-Norwegian consortium of 12 oil companies and both the British and Norwegian governments. The operator of the field, with responsibility for all construction and development on behalf of the partners, was Conoco.
We went into the Murchison Project knowing full well that we had a very, very tight schedule. Up until Murchison, and as far as I know, even today, there was only one other that had met that kind of a time frame. All of the others had run over the schedule at least a year.
We've seen the cost of the other projects go sky high and the schedules be delayed, and we knew we had to plan it better if we were going to sell it.
In order to prepare for how we would execute the project, we went around to each one of the oil companies that was operator in the North Sea to find out what the key was that we could use in order to make our project go.
The other oil companies cooperated willingly, supplying valuable information to help Conoco avoid some of the problems faced by the first generation of North Sea developers. It was soon apparent that the key to success was early planning, with all design work completed before fabrication and, very important, the formation of an engineering support group and the bringing in of an outside project services contractor. September 76, just a year after the discovery of oil. The project is given the official go-ahead. Planning, design, and fabrication get underway. The project was broken down into three main operational functions, each having a manager with clearly defined responsibilities and budget. Gordon Hitchens, with an allocation of $165 million, masterminds the construction of the giant steel jacket and deck section which supports the topside facilities. Jose Rodriguez, with a budget of $312 million, sees to the construction of 14 modules crammed with high technological hardware that make up the operational and life support facilities. These are to be built at 8 sites scattered around Europe. Hank Hart, with $97 million, has the job of seeing that all this gets out to the North Sea and is safely installed together with pipeline connections. A unique feature of his job is the subsea completions, a first in the North Sea, designed to tap existing exploration wells, thereby bringing the platform on stream as early as possible. July 77. The contract to build the huge jacket is awarded to McDermott's Scottish Yard at Ardessia. Wagons roll. Steel is offloaded on the first day of the contract, a measure of Conoco's management style. The opening salvo in the battle to win oil from the Murchison field. That battle will take 3 years. This is day one.
It's a matter of clawing and scratching and making it happen. You just don't sit back and say, well, now so-and-so has a contract and it's going to be done on time. He has a schedule and he's going to do it. You have to get in there with him. You have to participate with him, and that's putting it mildly. to always demonstrate it, how important it is that your job go along and keep on schedule, and show him how it's in both of your interests that it be done that way.
At contractor Matthew Hall, the design phase of the complex deck facilities is crucial, and intensive pressure is applied by the Conoco contingent to get that right. It is, after all, the linchpin to the whole project. An entire township is being created here, in which nearly 200 people will live and work. A processing plant, power station, hotel, airport, a small steel city. And all this technology will be packed into fewer but larger units to take advantage of the greater lifting ability now available offshore. For the Murchison Project to succeed, the jacket must be completed by the summer of '79.
Looking at the project at the start, we felt that we probably needed about 24 months to fabricate a jacket like this. However, in the actual time scale, we didn't have 24 months, and so we had to try to achieve it in something less than that. And we have certainly had some bad fortune at our fabrication yard.
27 weeks into the jacket contract and a strike shuts down the yard. A headache for the contractor for sure, but it also means that for 2 entire months, Gordon Hitchin's project remains in limbo. And there seem to be problems of some kind in the other yards where the modules, the deck facilities, are being made. And maybe it's problems of manpower or labor relations, shortages of materials, technical difficulties. But present on every site are Conoco men, there to keep up the pressure, to get it sorted.
I want it every morning what the allocation of welders is, not the equivalent days or number of hours these guys work, but how many welders have been assigned to our job.
Each Monday afternoon, the project management team gets together to establish just where the project is, and responsibility goes down the line as well as up. With so daunting a task and with so much at stake, management has to be about solving problems, preferably before they happen.
The money lies in fabrication and not in excess material, so we've got to go ahead and make sure we've got enough material available just as soon as we can get it.
But out in the North Sea, all is on schedule for the installation of the subsea completions during the summer of '78. This concept of re-entering exploration wells to increase initial platform production has been pioneered by Conoco. The all-important bit of hardware which makes it possible. The subsea wellhead, which, through its unique encapsulated bundle of pipes and instrumentation, will allow remote control of the well from the platform. 2 years will elapse before the final connection takes place. At the Ardisia yard, the bottles, or massive leg sections, have arrived from Japan. A giant crane called Nessie has been specially built to lift them. At last, the jacket outline begins to take shape. But disaster had struck. Nessie collapsed, and the weather too had taken its toll. By February '79, with the jacket very much behind schedule, doubts are creeping in about the launch taking place during the all-important weather window. If it doesn't, there can be no oil by 1980.
Well, we're fighting like hell to get out there this summer, and I'm confident that we will be successful. But it's going to be not without its gray hairs and worries.
And the fight is also on for Jose Rodriguez and his team to complete the modules by June '79. it's all go.
Management is a constant paying attention to every detail that's going on. You can't let anything go past. You have to worry about your people. You have to worry about how your contractors are performing. You have to urge your contractors to perform. You have to urge your people to perform constantly. You go and go and go, and when you stop, they stop. We make trips constantly to the yards. The managers are on the run all the time. I'm on the run most of the time. And we have occasional trips where management above me goes with me to the yards. And we find that these are very, very useful because they put people on a knife edge and make them produce just that little extra, and that's what we need in this project.
On the count of three, we're going up. Now, let the wind just take it away, and the cranes keep up behind them. On the count of three, 1, 2, 3, up we go.
At Ardisia, a record lift for the industry. 3,800 tons of steel being raised to the vertical. The biggest roll-up ever attempted.
How's your degrees, Bob Boyd? Still on 9. Okay, hold it there, boys. Hold it there. Crane 1, 48. Crane 2, 136. Crane 3, 146. Crane 4, 80. 5, 107.
The second roll-up was even bigger. Spring and early summer come good for the Murchison Project. Replacing the collapsed Nessie, special lifting towers have been erected to haul the huge bottles into place and angle them correctly. An heroic improvisation on the part of the Ardisia workforce, now pushing harder than ever to get the project back on schedule. Away from the high-wire acts of the construction sites, the partners gather for the signing ceremony that marks the conclusion of intense negotiations to decide how Murchison's oil should be shared out.
We've been very impressed with Conoco's whole conduct of the Murchison project. We're very impressed by the preliminary work that was done, the pre-engineering. We've been very impressed by the care and skill and devotion with which the whole thing has been progressed.
We are quite impressed with the way they have been able to keep their time schedules and their costs, and I just hope that it will continue like that.
We put a lot of thought into our partner and government relationships, and our philosophy on this is to keep our partners informed at all times and keep them up with us on what we're doing, good or bad.
At Wick, on the northeast tip of Scotland, one of the strangest fabrication sites of the project stretches out as far as the eye can see. Here, supervised by Conoco, the flowline bundles are made, 3 in all, the longest of which is over a mile long. They will connect each of the subsea completions to the Murchison platform. Meanwhile, the pressure is on to complete the modules for the deadline of June 79. July, and the modules move onto the barges. In yards all round Europe, the parts of the jigsaw are ready and waiting. Early August, a staggering realization. The great jacket is nearly complete and ready for the first part of its long journey, namely the short haul onto the barge, which will carry it to the Murchison field.
We've had many, many problems, but none of them that have been insurmountable. We've had a lot of people that didn't believe we would get here today. Even as little as 3 or 4 months ago, people doubted seriously that we would be able to push this out on a launch barge today. We're going to make it.
It's quite a moment. Strike and weather belabored, and 3 months late, 25,000 tons of assembled steel move onto the barge, itself long enough to accommodate the Houses of Parliament. The jacket is expected to travel the 700 feet in 30 hours, but it doesn't. There are problems with hydraulic jacks, and the friction on the guide tracks isn't the only friction around. But 6 days later, the jacket is on the barge. The great steel cathedral is no longer on dry land. Now the jacket is fastened to the barge for its sea journey. But the urgency of getting to Murchison must be tempered by the need for a long, calm spell of weather. That is becoming increasingly elusive as the weather window of '79 begins to close.
There are warnings of gales in Viking, Forties, Cromarty, Forth, Tyne, Dogger, Fisher.
Off the south coast of England, 30 people die at sea in the worst storms ever recorded in August. It's been a terrible summer. A meeting with the weatherman, all set to go, but the tow-out is postponed. The countdown starts again, only to be halted again. The weather is too uncertain. This is when conflicting interests come to the surface.
What will happen at Murchison on Saturday? And our recommendation is that on that basis, you gain yourself more time before deciding to proceed. And our recommendation is that you stay here at Ardersier until you get that confidence.
Captain Trevor Johns, marine engineer. He represents the underwriters, and only on his say-so can the barge move. And if he recommends staying, you stay.
You guys jumped the gun yesterday about the blowing. It breezed up a little about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and by 5:30 it was so calm up here, you hadn't seen it that calm.
Okay, it could be just that hour that you start moving.
I know, but anything can happen. But you don't want to go around preaching gloom. You guys made that sound like the goddamn hurricane was blowing down here yesterday.
We should be moving faster than we are. Every day that we spend here is a day that's lost to us in the offshore installation, and a day is time, and time is money.
Say we put a 12-hour hold on it.
And then, against the odds, the weather breaks. It's looking good.
Okay. Well, so on that basis, yes, we'll be glad to approve the float-out operation commencement, but we would like to have a second look at the long-term weather when you've got yourself into the mine first.
incredibly important and exciting moment for Conoco because we reach a critical juncture this morning in the development of the entire Murchison project, inasmuch as we're just a few minutes from launch time.
5 centimeters left to cut. The jacket is all loose now. Start pushing now, Roger.
The next trick is no less extraordinary. The great structure must be positioned precisely and upended securely on the seabed. And this, remember, at depths of 500 feet. All the years of planning and preparation, all those simulation tests, now pay off. They got there in the nick of time. Any later, and this whole operation would have faced postponement until March 1980. It was as critical as that. For the next month, the long task of removing the buoyancy tanks and piling the jacket onto the seabed must be completed before the assembly of the deck sections and the topside facilities can begin. Inch by inch, the piles are nailed into the bedrock, a continuous process through night and day, as the days shorten and the autumn gales approach. But August turns to September, September to October. The weather worsens. The piling takes longer and longer. Meanwhile, at a safe anchorage outside Bergen in Norway, the module support frame and the modules, towed there from their locations around Europe, await their final journey to the Murchison site. The northern winter draws nearer, and the huge crane barge, specially designed for record-breaking lifts offshore, has yet to show its worth. 3,000 tons of module support frame have to be lifted onto the jacket. With the days getting shorter all the time, most of the work has to be carried out in darkness, and then only during the precious moments of relative calm. Through the night, half of the deck section is lifted into position. Then the other half, and the complete module support frame is welded into place before the modules can be set on top. The weather holds while the first batch is placed successfully. As depressions queue up over the Atlantic, winter gales begin to sweep the North Sea. It's now that the weather window slams shut for the offshore construction industry. From November to March, little can be achieved while the storms rage. What price oil now? Against all the odds, they prize the weather window open and keep working. To get oil by 1980, they have to. By early December 1979, the last of the modules will be secured. An extraordinary achievement carried out in appalling conditions. It seems almost unreal. And now begins the last intensive stage of the project. An army of North Sea bears, as offshore construction workers like to call themselves, is transported out to the platform for the hookup phase. They're going to Murchison. No longer just the name of a project, but now a place on the map. And the hookup is just that. The connecting up of steelwork, pipework and cabling, of heating, ventilation and instrumentation systems. The binding together into one working unit of the many sections which make up the whole. Usually subcontracted, this hookup was planned by Conoco itself as far back as 1976. It is the fastest hookup the oil industry has seen. For Jose Rodriguez, master of the modules, the Battle of Man-Hours becomes a crusade. At this stage, unashamedly, the drive has to be fanatical, and the logistics become ever more complex. By May, things are looking promising. The early planning of the hookup is now bearing fruit.
We tried to identify every single thing that was going to have to be done, describe it, describe how many men it would take to do it, what supplies they'd need, and did this systematically. And this system's working. One thing, we had the benefit of other people's experience, and we took advantage of that and the way we planned the execution of the job. We managed the project ourselves. Instead of turning it over to a general contractor, we used these great people that we've had at the fabrication yards to come on and finish the things that they started building.
Meanwhile, the world's most advanced pipe-laying barge has begun laying the 10-mile pipeline to the Dunlin platform, which in turn will link into the main pipeline to the Shetland Isles at Sullom Voe. It's ahead of schedule. By June 1980, the Balder returns with the flare boom. July, and the flowline bundles are towed out from Wick to Murchison and connected to the subsea completions and the platform. This is pioneering technology, working as planned. No longer cold steel, the platform pulses into life. The project team hands over to production. It's their show now. From 2 miles under the earth, the oil begins to flow.
Okay, Alan, I'm going to open this valve now. Yeah, those switches are correct. Could you tell me what the oil flow rate is, please? 102.5 cubic meters an hour. Fine. You're happy about that?
4 years and $1,000 million later, on schedule and within budget. September the 30th, 1980. A great day for the Murchison Project team, and not a bad day for Conoco.
I don't think of anything except Murchison. When I get up in the morning, brush my teeth, look in the mirror, go home at night, fall in bed. It's all Murchison, with the exception of the family. I think that's required of everybody that works on the project. Then it's to fire up and stimulate those people to produce and look at the details, make sure that nothing is missed. These are the things that you're really called upon to be a manager for.